I just check who we've got from the council on the committee, because I can't see everyone. I don't know whether I need to do, let's see if I do gallery view. So I've got Trevor, sorry, both Councillor Martins, Councillor Saunders, Councillor Reynolds, Madam Mayor, sorry, Councillor Owen and Councillor Hook. I think that's it. Does that mean we don't have any apologies for absence?
That's correct. Everybody's here.
Super. So that's the first agenda item dealt with. The next agenda item is declarations of interest. And I'm conscious that we have the grants section coming up, which might generate a number of interests around that. I propose that we deal with that at the point on the agenda that we come to the grants. And I have a particular way that I would like to work through the grants themselves. And I think when we get to that agenda item, I'll talk you through the proposed approach, and we can work through those that are kind of trustees or have interests in any of the grant applications, and we'll deal with that at the time. So notwithstanding the grants, are there any other declarations of interest about other elements within the agenda? No, in which case we will move on. Minutes of the previous meeting. Louise, is there anything that we should be receiving an update and matters arising from?
No, I think everything's on the agenda. That's.
I mean, I'm comfortable to propose we accept the minutes. Does anyone else?
I second.
Second. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we vote on the accepting the minutes of the last meeting? Councillors Hook, Councillor Ben Martin, Councillor Owen, do you like to vote on accepting the minutes?
I wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay, great.
Could I raise an issue, Chair, please?
Sure, Councillor
Saunders. Under item 173, the town clerk was going to report on the pensions and PAYE and why they seem to be quite ahead of profile. I'm wondering if there's any feedback on that.
So that was dealt with at the staff committee meeting, Councillor Saunders, and the essential outcome of that is the contributions for PAYE and pensions are in line with expectation. Unfortunately, the budget and forecast was set below that required to cover pensions and PAYE. We talked at some length about what that means for the budget, and essentially it's not a particularly big figure and doesn't impact the town budget across the year. So it's something we'll pay attention to in our forecasting and budget season as we're coming to that now. But essentially it's a reflection of the fact that the budget was under forecasted in effect for pension and PAYE, but the amounts paid are a reflection of what's due given the wages we pay. So is that clear? Are you comfortable?
Yeah, thank you.
So I think we've accepted those minutes, and we can move on. Month-end financial reports. Is there anything, Town Clerk, you'd like to take us through on these reports or draw our attention to?
Nothing specific. We just need, I've asked Emma to just do some tidying up because on, I think particularly the sales ledger, it just really needs, some of that needs to be removed because it's all been sorted. It just needs tidying up because it looks like there's a lot on there, but actually they just need to be, a box needs to be ticked, so it just needs to be tidied up.
Okay, yeah, I did notice that the weddings.
Yeah, but they've been, everything's been paid, so it just needs to be
accounted for, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any particular questions on the financial reporting? If it's, I've been through it and I'm pretty comfortable with it all. It was only the sales ledger and the invoicing against the weddings that I noted. If there are no questions, I propose we accept the reporting. Anyone like to second that? Councillor Trevor Martin. And can we vote on that? That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, work in progress report. Does everyone have a copy? I think this was noted at the full town council meeting last time, but it's good to know that we've made the contribution to the Community Land Trust registered for. If there are any thoughts, comments or questions on the work in progress report?
All look good.
Councillor Ben Martin.
Yeah, just under number 7 on there, in terms of homelessness, developing ways to assist the homeless in Favisham. It is unlikely that any further action is going to be able to be taken this financial year, given that even at a Swale level, we've had to cancel our annual count of rough sleepers due to the high rates of COVID in the area, posing too high a risk in doing so. Yeah, unlikely that we'll be able to make any further progress on that one.
Understood. Any other further thoughts or questions? Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. I just wanted to again update as per Councillor Martin did on item 8, which is around sports council and sports groups. Obviously, given the current situation, it has been and remains difficult to engage with sports clubs in the town, not least because many of them periodically through the year have been closed down. What I would say is we are continuing though to work with Swale Borough Council and their sports and activities officer around a neighbourhood plan, and you know, can report that interaction's going very well and very positively, but we won't be delivering necessarily as per the initial plan objective.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of impacts of COVID across the report. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, obviously that also has impacted on the use of 12 Marketplace, which is item, where are we? Can't find it now. It was in there on community groups and spaces, item 10. Again, the same thing. Well, encouraging community creative by enabling groups to meet. At the moment, that's not a possibility, and it looks like this will be something that will, from reports today, looks like it may be the case through till March next year to the spring. I think is the term used by government today, which can be anything between March and May, June, when depending on which definition of spring they use.
I note sort of item 9C as well, actually, better engagement with Kent Police, British Transport Police, Swale Borough Council around occurrences and perception of antisocial behaviour. I mean, it feels like obviously driven by circumstances and events, that we've had some pretty significant engagement across the town council recently around these issues, and that I think the dialogue has improved, hasn't it?
Definitely.
Councillor Owen, you're on mute, unfortunately, Councillor Owen.
So I was going to make a suggestion, given where we are in the year, and this is a work in progress report, would it be worth the owners, or in some cases they may be chairs of groups or committees, to provide an update to them? So for instance, where they are amber or red, maybe indicating how that's changed, how it'll be recovered, or it will be scrapped for 2020, rather than run to year end and have lots of reds essentially, and saying we failed to deliver, when in fact there being quite extenuating circumstances. I don't know whether that would be useful.
Of the town clerk, is that going to be possible?
Yes, or I could add another button that says affected by COVID, just to the chart. I don't know if that's useful.
I think that would be a fair way of doing it, because this pandemic has effectively stopped everything for pretty much the whole of the civic year from being normal, for want of a better way. And obviously, as we come out of it, it's still not going to be fully normal, and we're almost in effect looking towards 2021, 22, 22, 23 for us to achieve some of the objectives in there, purely because we haven't been able to engage with the people that we need to get the work done. And to be fair, they're not legally allowed to meet or whatever. So until they do, we don't know what their situations are going to be.
Yeah, it sounds reasonable and fair to me. It's an approach. When I look at the neighbourhood plan element 6, Councillor Owen, it strikes me that we are actually spending money here, albeit probably not as much as anticipated, but there probably ought to be some value and progress and cost today. We've been paying Breakthrough Communications if no one else.
Yeah, I can give you a quick update on that. Actually, I've been working with a deputy town clerk who's been supporting the project really diligently. We have been tracking spend from I suppose an accounting perspective. So we actually have spent, but we haven't received invoices yet. So for instance, Urban Vision, who are our planning consultants, we're expecting quite a significant invoice to come from them at the end of November when they deliver certain pre-specified outcomes. So we're spending more than is or we have spent more than is indicated in there, but I'm confident we can update it by year end. And actually, I think we will comfortably spend by the end of the financial year, because despite a lull for 2 or 3 months, I think around the start of the first COVID lockdown, we've picked up quite significant momentum.
Yeah. Remember from the last meeting, do we propose and we accept this work in progress report?
I think so.
Yep.
You can do, yes.
Okay. I'm happy to propose we accept the report. And I'd like to second. Councillor Owen, Councillor Trevor Martin. Can we vote on that? Thank you. Right. I've just noticed your backdrop, Councillor Hook, which I've not seen that picture before, which is great.
Have you been in that room of his house?
I've got to come down and check. It's all fine. The building's still here. Yeah, it's all good.
It's the west wing of
Definitely.
Hours.
Looks great.
Councillor Barker doesn't recognise it because he's not been there for so long.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a long time, isn't it? I mean, it
It's
must
a
be
long time.
February or January since I've been
Yeah.
in. It's a long time.
It's quite cold in the Guildhall, though, I've got to say.
Yeah. Yes, that's the thing. It is cold. Yeah. Draft on that back window. Yeah.
Even the virtual Guildhall. Excellent.
Yeah.
Moving on, item 6, Visitor and Events Development Officer Work in Progress Report. Town Clerk, is there anything you wanted to draw attention to on this?
No, I think it is quite clear. Claire's done quite a few bits for me last week, as you will see by, I think she adds it to the bottom. Yep, so she's been quite busy.
Any other thoughts or questions?
Just be told a bit more, I realize Claire's not here, but about Trav Media, because they're referred to quite a few times. Who are they and what's it all about? Something to travel to Kent, I think. Perhaps there's some sort of promotion of tourism, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that's something that Swale Borough Council use, that they deal with. So she's been working with Martin Goodhue.
Who's the tourism officer?
Well, economic development. No, well, whatever they are, they deal with the tourism.
Right.
Mm.
And it looks like Claire's standing across some of the absences from Martin, doesn't it? And making sure the websites are updated in his absence, which is good. And I note that she supported the resident survey on the neighbourhood plan, which is hopefully being delivered across this week, which is very helpful. And I think that's going out in an online survey form as well from Friday. Any other thoughts or questions? Or should we accept? Have a proposal to accept? Thank you, Councillor Hook. Up to second for Councillor Irwin to vote. Thank you. Accepted. Supporting the renewal of the town offer. Councillor Saunders, will you lead us through this?
Yes, I can do, Chair. So you remember at the last meeting, we agreed to move forward with setting up a town lottery. You've got a short paper here, which is kind of updating you on progress since the last meeting. There's been quite a lot going on. So we now have a lottery licence from Swale Borough Council. We've signed a contract with Gatherwell for them to set up a community lottery. And we had an initial meeting involving the town clerk and me with Gatherwell, and we have an assigned contract manager whose name escapes me at the moment, but I'm sure that the town clerk will remember. We've also been back to the monitoring officer at Swale. This was just to make sure that there were no issues in terms of the timeline for launching the lottery, that we didn't need to be careful about the purdah period or elections. And he's quite happy with our proposed timeline. So the town clerk has worked with Gatherwell to prepare a timeline for the project, and on the the front page here, you've got the key milestones of the project. So we'd be looking at an event for community organisations and good causes in the middle of January. That would be a virtual event, and in fact Gatherwell have found that virtual events have actually been more effective than running the in-person events that they used to run previously. We would then start selling tickets to the public for the first actual draw in the middle of, or towards the end of February, and the first draw of a lottery would be on the 3rd of April. And the town clerk on the second page is provided with a more detailed breakdown of the action plan. And I'm pleased to see that she's got her initials against most of the actions, which is very pleasing for the rest of us. Yeah. So if not for her. At this meeting, there are 4 recommendations that we're asking that you agree. The first is to set up a lottery working group reporting to this committee. I think it's going to be quite key to have a group of councillors that's keeping the project on track, but also giving feedback on its development, because there's quite a few decisions to be made and they do require people to think about the impact on the community and also what will work with the public. So I must confess, I have, because I think we need key players within the town council. I have canvassed both the mayor and the deputy mayor to see whether they'd be happy to be on the on a working group if you agree to set it up, and I think they're both happy to do that. So that, I think that's something that we need to come to, assuming that we do set up a working group. The second thing is to agree the name of the lottery. We are keen to call it Favisham and District, or to have that concept of Favisham and District, because that means we can attract a wider range of organisations in, and the more organisations, the more likely players you've got, the more money overall you're likely to raise, and the more of a feel that you'll engender. We're also thinking that adding the word community might be sensible. I mean, the company run community lotteries, and I think calling it a community lottery gives the sense that it's not just about people winning prizes and the promoter making money. It's actually about the community. So that's the second recommendation. The third is we'd like you to agree a logo. So that may turn out to be the longest discussion. And you should have a number of options, which I think Claire has prepared for us. So it'd be interesting to get feedback on that. And finally, the recommendation is that we agree the detailed action plan that you've got. So those are the recommendations, Chair. So I'll hand over to you to manage the process of discussing those.
Super. Should we just take each in turn? Shall we talk to the working group first and agree the membership? Firstly, does anyone disagree with the idea of a working group? It sounds perfectly sensible to me, but everyone is in agreement with that. Councillor Saunders, do you think you need more than 3? Were you looking for as many as we could?
I think there's, I think 3, including myself and the mayor and the deputy mayor, plus perhaps one other, would probably make I mean, it's a working group rather than a subcommittee. Yeah. Would probably make a good number. I mean, so if there was anyone else who was interested, that would be great. I'm sure you've all got things that you could contribute.
Councillor, I mean, I'm happy to step forward as well, but Councillor Owen, I think Sorry, Councillor, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I was going to offer my services to participate, but I'm not going to fight over it, Councillor Barker. So if you would like to do it, I'm more than happy for you to do it.
Yeah, I'm happy to step forward. Councillor Trevor Martin, you raised your hand as well.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say I think it's a good idea to have an extra body available rather than just myself and the deputy mayor, particularly given some of the work that's going on with other groups around and about, and then if there is any conflict of interest from either of our current or former groups that have been involved in, it would be nice to have somebody else who's not. And so thank you, Councillor Barker, for stepping forward on that.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. So can we just agree that? Do we need to vote on that? I'm not sure we do. If we do, happy to propose and second and all agree. Yeah, okay. Agree the name Favisham District Community Lottery. I mean, I'm persuaded by the need for community in the name, but any thoughts? Anyone else? Any alternatives or disagreements?
I think it should be. Looks good.
No. Okay. Should we just take a vote on that then to agree that?
We just have a proposer and seconder then, please.
I'm happy to propose.
Second.
And second, Madam Mayor, and then it was carried unanimously. Thank you. Possibly, as you say, the most contentious one is to agree the logo. Does everyone have their logo sheet?
Yes.
On there? Just, I think for simplicity, that it looks like there are 11 options here. If we name them 1 to 5 down the left and 6 through 11 on the right, we can at least know which ones we're talking about. Does anyone want to start the bidding? Councillor Trevor, Ben Martin, sorry.
I'll start the bidding by saying anything apart from number 3, please. Frankly, it looks a little bit coronary for my liking.
Okay.
I'd like number 6 or number 2.
Shall we each, actually that's a really good idea. Shall we each have 2 votes and we'll see which gets the most, and then we can try and narrow it down. You can think of 2 that you do like, and then call out the numbers. I'll do it round in turn. So 2 and 6 for Madam Mayor.
I like 6 and 8. 6 because there's a silhouette of people, and I think people is always good. And I quite like 8 because the word community is very prominent, and I think the word community is very important.
I quite like 9 and 8.
Can I just go for 8, please?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, could you just repeat the ordering of these?
So 1 to 5 down the left-hand side,
and then
6 through 11 on the right-hand side.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Chair, forgive me, my mistake. When I said 6, I meant 5. I meant 5 and 7, actually, but that may have been obvious to you from what I actually said. I like 5 because of the silhouette of the people, and I like 8. I like 7 because the word community is prominent. Sorry.
Can I come in? I like 7, partly because it's simpler than some of the others, and as Councillor Hook says, communities well represented. I actually like number 4, which no one else has mentioned. I think the numbers are kind of lotto. They signal it's a lottery. So those would be my 2 choices.
Great. I think Councillor Trevor Martin.
I say I quite like 5 and 8 on that. Again, mainly because they've got the people there, but that's just me.
And I think it's Councillor Ben Martin. If you
Probably 5 and 11, just to throw a spanner in the works in some ways.
5 and 11. Right. I mean, for my ready rec now, we have 3 8s and 3 5s. It just made it nice and easy. I'm not entirely clear how we choose this and whether we can afford ourselves the time and perhaps take the 2 alternatives to the full town council for another discussion, or should we just decide here and now?
Only number 6 has the word fund on it. I don't know, that sort of stood out to me. Community fund. None of the others have that word on them at all, do they? Which is why I went for 6, really.
If I can just point out, I think we have to provide 2 logos, and one has to say community fund on it. So I would ignore that fund part because there will be the community lottery, and then there will be the separate bit that is the general fund.
Community fund, yeah, right.
Does anyone have any ways that we could try and resolve this tonight in favour of either 5 or 8?
I suppose one thing you could do is it could be, I think, what we call a single transferable vote. I mean, those who didn't have an option, didn't choose one of the main options in the first round, maybe could have a second vote.
Yes, good idea.
Alternatively, we could have a runoff.
Can I ask a question? Where do we envisage the logo is going to be used? Because I'm thinking about how easy it would be to read. I mean, the font in 8 is a bit more stylized in the font in 6. It strikes me 6, if you were printing it big to read at a distance, would be easier to read. If it's on a leaflet or a piece of paper in your hand, it doesn't matter so much. The website wouldn't matter so much either.
Well, the logo is going to be on the website. It will be on Facebook. So it will be used quite extensively.
Mm-hmm. People are mainly sit on a screen in front of them, so it's not like they're seeing it at a distance. So probably there's not a lot of difference. Although,
so actually, I mean, it strikes me it's a good point, well made, and I think we could try and resolve this tonight or take it to full town council. I prefer resolving it tonight. There are 7 of us. Each of us could have 1 vote, and therefore, we will choose one of them. So we'll go around the table if you don't mind. Madam Mayor, 5 or 8?
5.
Councillor Saunders, 5 or 8?
5.
Councillor Owen?
5.
Councillor Trevor Martin?
5.
Councillor Hook?
5.
Well, that's resolved anyway. Just out of interest, Councillor Ben Martin.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Yeah, and I'll go with 5 too. 5 is good. Thank you for that. And then, last but not least, and possibly as important, or probably more important in some ways, is the action plan. I have to say, I mean, so firstly, thanks to the town clerk for picking up many of the actions and helping drive this forward. I think it is going to be really positive for the community, and I appreciate the support she's offering. My only slight reservation around this, and maybe it's, maybe there is never a good time for this, is how this coincides with kind of lockdown post Christmas and pushing and launching late winter, early spring. Is that a good time would be my only question. I'm not sure there is a good time at the moment, but
I don't think.
Does anyone else have any thoughts about the timing or the action plan in general? Councillor Trevor Martin.
Thanks. Yeah, I can see your point, Councillor Barker, but as you say, I don't think there is a good time at the moment. I think it's a question of looking at the timeline here. Your first draw in April, when hopefully changes will have been afoot for a while. It will mean it will start to, it can develop as the, I won't say return to normal, because I don't suspect we will have a return to normal, but as we gradually move away from the worst of this pandemic, hopefully, I think it's a good timing from that point of view, and it will allow groups to come on board with it as they regenerate. And I think from that point of view, it's quite a good timeline. As you say, I do not think there's a really, I don't think it doesn't matter when you do it, it will suit some and won't suit others. For example, doing it in the spring may suit those sports clubs and what have you that start their summer season. People like the swimming club and the cricket clubs. Whereas if you started it in October, it wouldn't suit the cricket. Them, it would suit the football and the rugby. So I think there's no point where it will be perfect, and I think this is probably a good place to start, because it will actually hopefully see groups starting to meet and being able to promote it to their members and then receive the benefit from it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor Martin. Any other thoughts or questions? Councillor Hook.
So a question on the timing. I had to Google to check this. The 3rd of April is Easter weekend, Saturday of Easter weekend. And obviously Easter is the most important religious holiday for Christians. Not everyone is, but I'm in two minds as to whether in a way that makes it better because charitable giving is very important in Christianity, or whether having an exercise in gambling, which is in another sense, makes it not quite right to do it on Easter weekend. And I don't know the answer, but I just wondered perhaps if we could, outside the meeting, think about that, consult the Mayor's Chaplain and other local faith leaders, and if appropriate, move it forward a week or back a week, as the case may be.
You make a good point, and
yes,
I mean it strikes me in the recommendation it's to agree the action plan. It strikes me that presumably, timings could be varied, but that the action plan is as much about agreeing the specific content and the line items, really, the tasks, if you like, in a project plan. And it could well be that things end up moving a day, a week, or whatever across the entire timetable. I think it makes sense to sort of seek feedback. We've got great relationships with the churches within town, so it strikes me as a good idea to seek their feedback.
I would do that. Yes, I agree.
Any other thoughts?
May I suggest we actually put that to the working group just to consider, and they can take that forward and finalise that first draw date, because it is, looking at this, it is that one thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Councillor Saunders.
I mean, I don't have any problem with what's being proposed. It was just a bit of background. The timetabling has been worked through with Gatherwell, the company. So it's a time scale that they are happy to work with, and that fits with the way, obviously, they've structured their time. But I don't think at this stage it matters if we change it a bit. But I think I suppose my point is that it's worth remembering that it's not just our timetable. It's also the timetable of the company that we're working with, our partner in delivering this.
Could we contact them to find out whether it would be really difficult to move it a week after? Could we actually ask that question?
Yeah, I think we can. I don't think it will be unless the town clerk thinks there's a problem.
My only concern is obviously the monitoring officer. This has been agreed, timeline agreed with him. I'm just a bit concerned because it gets, if you delay it a week, it gets closer to the election time.
I mean, just on that point, town clerk, I'm just conscious that the second one, I'm not sure whether that occurs just after or yeah, because it continues to promote the lottery after the 7th of May. My assumption is that there will be more draws between the proposed date at the moment of the 3rd and the election time. So it's definitely worth bearing him in mind. I'm kind of minded to recommend we accept this timetable and that the working group works through the considerations of Gatherwell, the churches and the monitoring officer, just to see what sensitivities are around the final dates. But in terms of tasks and structure, it looks great. So I'm ready to propose it. Does anyone want to second it, or do we? Councillor Trevor Martin, second. Should we vote to accept and leave the detail to the working group? All those for? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Thank you, Town Clerk. That's really good. Very good work. Community grants. So, in no particular order, there's always a lot to get through here. The nature of the applications are less so this year than last year, where I think last year we had something like £42,000 of applications and a budget of 26,000. We've obviously done a good deal to kind of restructure the budgets and grant processes so we could take into account CAB as was independently of the grants application process, which is a good thing to have done as a council. Nevertheless, we still find ourselves in a position where we have slightly over contended funding. So the applications this year total just shy of 36,000, and the budget is just shy of 29,000. I'm minded to break this down into 3 sections. And I have a proposal to make that will kind of lead us to the first section, and depending on whether the committee accepts that kind of recommendation, it might make the rest of the process flow a bit more easily and kind of remove some of the constraints commercially that we have. I'll come to that in a second. Before we talk to that first proposal, and I don't think that first proposal requires anybody to declare any interests and step away from the table, and nor indeed do I think my second proposal of the 3 segments would require anyone to step away from the table. But in the third section, where I'm proposing we go through it line by line, hopefully the process is quite simplified by that point. We will be firstly on a line by line basis agreeing that the application is valuable and valid, and we accept the application. And then secondly, if we do want to consider only offering a proportion of the requested funds, at that point, on a line by line item, we will take registered interests, and those that have registered interests in each of the applications will the town clerk will kind of remove you to the waiting room, at which point the rest of the committee will discuss the recommendation to full town council. When that line item is moved beyond, we will we'll bring you back in from the waiting room and we'll carry on. I think there might be one line item where I have an interest, and so at that point, Councillor Trevor Martin, as Vice Chair, I think, of Policy and Finance, I'll ask you to chair that particular line entry. Hopefully we've done a few by then, so we'll be in a pattern. if none of that is clear,
It is.
it will be clear as we go along.
Yeah.
So my first recommendation is to Councillor Saunders.
Sorry, you described the process. The final phase of the process was perhaps the most difficult, because that was reviewing each application individually. Did I get that? Yeah.
Yeah. So
the suggestion was that members would only withdraw when they had an interest in a particular application.
So let's take one of those as an example. When we come to the West Favisham Community Centre youth drop-in, I know that I think 2, possibly 3 of you have a vested interest. And so we get to that line item. I'd expect you to declare that interest. I'd expect the town clerk to remove you into the waiting room until that point is discussed by committee. And when it has been discussed and agreed, you'll be drawn back into the meeting.
Sorry, my question really is this a process that the town clerk has, the equivalent of our monitoring officer is happy with and has agreed to?
I haven't asked the monitoring officer. This is what would normally be the case with declarations of interest.
Sorry, yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting we should have asked the monitoring. I was just,
in the room, but
just kind of you as the town clerk, as our kind of advisor on this, was happy with the process.
No, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to remove anybody. I've not received any requests for dispensations. So if you're declaring an interest, I will remove you.
And I had Councillor Saunders talk that through the town clerk today, just to make sure it seems reasonable. Councillor Ben Martin.
Just to confirm, I do believe I did put in a request for dispensation.
Okay, I've not received that, but
I did email it out a few days ago.
All right.
In a general one where I said many of us probably need to, and I would like to.
All right, no, that's fine then.
Just so I'm really clear, because it's important to be clear on this, Councillor Ben Martin, the dispensation, do you believe that entitles the person, even though they have an interest, to sit in on the debate, or do you think they should be removed?
That means that Councillor Ben Martin can sit, he can comment, but he cannot vote.
Exactly that.
Okay.
I just figure it might be useful for you on that particular application.
Okay, and I think I know which application you're referring to.
I do.
Get to that in turn. So the first of the 3 steps is a recommendation from me. When I look through all of these applications, and I spent a reasonable amount doing so over the weekend, it struck me that 2 of them, in particular, the Creed Outdoor Learning Trust and the West Favisham Community Association Youth Drop-In, are both really appealing for money to support youth work in the short term. And it also strikes me that, this time last year we set a budget and we made youth as a collective council one of our priorities. And we set a budget for a full-time youth worker and some funding for that youth worker to be able to conduct any activities. Now, events have overtaken us and we haven't been able to spend that or any money, or those, we've forwarded some activities within that group, but haven't really done as much as we would like. My proposal or recommendation would be that each of those applications is actually withdrawn from this grant process at the moment, and that the youth working group considers, as soon as is practically possible, and I suspect that some of, either of these applications would probably we're looking for the money sooner rather than later, but that youth working group could consider the applications requested for those, which in combination totals just short of £5,000, and use the youth budgets that we had this year, the £10,000 of working money, to support both of those activities, which are broadly for the first half of next calendar year. I think it would effectively delegate some of that responsibility and get some youth engagement across the town through two, good organisations, and I think it reduces the burden on this grant process, and feels like a good thing, and that the council might want to sponsor. I appreciate not everyone might feel the same, and that I haven't circulated this idea thus far. So I'm going to make a recommendation, proposal that we ask the youth group to support the funding for those two grant applications as part of their annual budget, and welcome people to discuss that idea. Councillor Saunders.
I'm kind of sympathetic to what you're proposing. I mean, I wanted to raise this issue. 2 points. I think before we do this, I'd like to have some minimal assurance from members of the youth subgroup that they're likely to consider applications for funding, because otherwise we've kind of removed these applications from this stream of funding and just kind of passed them over to a stream of funding which doesn't potentially exist. My other point is a more general point, which maybe members of the youth subgroup might want to consider. It feels to me that one of the applications seem to mirror some of the activities that I understand you're funding through the community bus. There seemed to be some element of duplication there, and I'm also concerned that both the organisations in their proposals talk about how they're now not partnering with Brogdale CIC, who've got the KCC contract, and I think the youth group might want to think about how we can start to get a bit more coherence in youth provision within the town. I think it's slightly concerning that we've got a number of organisations offering youth work, but they're not delivering in an effective partnership. I know these things can be very difficult, but I think as a town council, as more of a strategic body, we should be trying to encourage that. So that's a general comment and probably not relevant to what you're asking us to decide, which I broadly support. Thank you.
I certainly take your point on it's pointless deferring money from here to that group who might not accept that proposal because they might have plans of their own, and those two applications could be stranded without funding. I think that's a point well made. Any other thoughts or questions on that proposal? Councillor Hook?
Chair, I am a trustee of the West Favisham Community Centre, so I declare that interest, and I'm not going to take part in the discussion or vote even on this procedural matter. I feel it's best if I don't.
It's interesting because I don't actually see this as a sort of conflict of interest, because I don't think we're asking you to vote on whether we're accepting that funding, because that will be for the youth committee to accept or the youth group to accept. It's more that they can be removed and placed under the kind of jurisdiction of the youth group. So I'm not entirely sure that means you do or don't have to vote, if I'm honest.
I probably, even if I don't have to excuse myself, I'm going to choose to. And the reason why is that a cynical person might suggest that I have voted for or against moving it to the youth group to make the granting of the application more or less likely. So to protect myself against that spurious allegation, I'll step back and allow my colleagues to make the right decision.
Understood. Do I have any other thoughts or comments? Councillor Trevor Martin.
Thank you. I was going to say, actually, I've been looking at this, and the 2 marks I put on these applications were youth question mark youth working group. So I think I've followed your come to the same conclusion as Councillor Barker without actually talking to him about it, which is quite reasonable. I would suggest that for those particular youth functions, we push them to that group, because that group has not spent the funding that we would have anticipated they would have spent. This is an unusual year for many reasons, and I think that would be a fair and equitable way of ensuring that we can help as many people as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor Martin.
Absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Owen?
So I sit on that group, I think, as two other councillors in this group do. The piece which isn't related to funding, but just to reassure Councillor Saunders that actually we had quite an extensive discussion at our last meeting around the role of the council in terms of coordinating various elements of youth work, and we are very cognizant of the need to ensure that various providers are working harmoniously and not necessarily duplicating the work of others. And we even talked about that in the context of the council, making sure it doesn't simply add a layer of complexity by being a service provider itself until we understand it. So I think that's well in hand, but it's a point well taken. I think it's a reasonable suggestion. I think they are clearly youth focused activities, and I'm familiar with both of the applicants, and I'm familiar with both of them, and I don't think this is a conflict of interest, but my children have participated in activities from Creed Outdoor Learning, and you know, I very much understand the value of what they deliver. So I think it's a very reasonable suggestion.
Yeah, I would like to agree with that.
Councillor Ben Martin, any thoughts? So my proposal is that we ask the youth group to look at the funding for both of those applications. Would anyone like to second that? Councillor Trevor Martin, can we take a vote for those who are there to
Can I
vote
do that?
on?
Can I vote? Because I'm on the, yeah. Can't I?
I think we've, carried unanimously. Thank you, Town Clerk. The second element, and I don't know if Councillor Hook has removed himself or is in the waiting room, but thank you, Councillor Hook, back from the virtual Guildhall. It's fantastic to see. I'm minded that Councillor Hook isn't going to be with us for the entirety of the meeting.
Oh yeah.
My second proposal on this, and this is actually moving us directly to one line item, so I ought to ask at the beginning of this: does anyone have any interest in the Find Your Voice application? I'm assuming not. I'm not getting any yeses, so I can feel free to talk about this then. My second proposal is that on reading the application from Find Your Voice, I mean, at a personal level, I have sung in many choirs since I was a young boy, all the way through to singing with the Canterbury Choral Society, which is probably the second or third best in the country. I have a great love of choral music, and I recognise its mental health benefits. I thought it was it's a nice application, but I am minded to say that they are very early in this process. That it looks like they don't have a bank account set up in the name of charitable organisation. It's personal bank accounts. That we're in a time of COVID where it's impossible for people to gather at the moment, and that for me this application felt like it's come a bit too early for them for us to seriously consider it. I think I would like to encourage them to apply again at the next opportunity if they were to progress their thinking, have gathered more support from the organisations they had been talking to, so Favisham Counselling Services and so on, over the next 6 months, and build up the organisation really. And so I'm minded to say that we should reject this now and ask them to apply again. Councillor Ben Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I will second your proposal on this one, purely because it doesn't currently meet the grant criteria. It's very clear in the grant criteria that grants cannot be issued to individuals, and essentially that's what this would be doing at the moment.
Yeah. And I hope they can generate the organisational structure around it for us to be able to look at this seriously in future, but it's just not in the right place at the moment. Any other thoughts on that? before we potentially move to vote?
Quite agree.
Okay, in which case, if we can move to vote that we remove or don't fund Find Your Voice this time round, but encourage them. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So that I think makes the process considerably easier, in a sense that it feels to me that I'm just going to do a quick couple of.
Councillor Barker,
Yeah.
can I just raise Milfield allotments as well, please?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Please carry on.
Oh, in a similar way to the youth, we also have a separate budget for the allotment. So if you were minded to agree the Milfield Allotment Association, that could actually come out of our allotment budget, because it was 10,000 and I think we've spent about 3 money in that specific budget, which I think would be more relevant.
Councillor Ben Martin.
I'm happy to take the town clerk's recommendation and propose it.
Yes.
I'm happy to second.
Oh, yeah.
Can we vote? Can we vote on that to move that to Allotment Association? Fantastic.
So, sorry, just to confirm, are you saying that you're happy to pay that from the allotment budget? Thank you.
Yes. So by my reckoning now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 grants to work through, with a total requested funding of 21,000 against a budget of 28,000. And my proposal is to do these line by line now to start up animate arts. Each one I'll ask if there's anybody who's got any interests, and we'll just make sure that we can either talk to but not vote on. And we'll do, I think, each of them in 2 stages. One, assess whether we think we accept their application, and second, if we feel there's any reason that we should not award the full amount. So the 2 parts of the conversation. Is anyone unhappy with that? Anyone got any? No. In which case we'll move forward then. Does anyone have any interest in animate arts? No. And so to open it up then, does everyone feel that it's a valuable application that we should be supporting, or otherwise? Councillor Saunders.
I mean, I think they're a valuable, genuine organisation. I suppose the one issue is that their work is across quite a wide geographical area. So as an organisation, they don't necessarily have a large impact on Favisham itself. There's probably more of an impact in that they're a local organisation that operates out of the Alexander Centre, and has an impact on the town's economy. I mean, they're asking for a fairly small amount of money, and it's a contribution to rent. So I, especially as a result of the skillful way you've cut down the number of applications, Chair, I think I would be prepared to support it. But I think it's worth just bearing in mind that they're an organisation that has a far wider reach than just the town.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions?
And it is for rent.
I mean, I'm happy to propose this as well. I mean, whilst this isn't in the realms of the kind of Royal Opera House, arts and culture in this country is taking a hammering at the moment, and anything that can support it at any level is a good thing, as far as I can see. Councillor Ben Martin.
Yeah, I'm inclined to support this one, as well as suggest that we just put when informing them, sending them the link to the discretionary grant application process that's being run by district councils as well. Given I know freelancers have really suffered over the last year, nearly 3 million of them haven't really had any payments out of central government, while others have had furlough and whatnot. And this time round there is another facility that they can utilise as well. So let's make sure they're aware of it and apply for it.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to propose we accept the grant application. Does anyone like to second? Councillor Trevor Martin. And can we vote on accepting the application? I'm going to propose that we accept and fund the full amount. Does anyone like to second that? Councillor Trevor Martin, can we vote on funding the full amount? Thank you. Accepted. The next application is the Assembly Rooms Favisham, an application for £1,750 to support the increment of technical infrastructure for the building. Any thoughts or questions on this, Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I think it's the Assembly Rooms is a absolutely fantastic and important resource for the town. Obviously, this expenditure is designed towards readying them for the return with lighting rigs, improved staging, etc. It is unfortunate they can't do it, but like I think many other organisations in the country, they're taking the opportunity to put these infrastructure improvements in place whilst the building's empty. I think it's a good application, and I think we should support it.
Any other thoughts or questions? Councillor Saunders.
I'd support Councillor Owen's view, and I think really this is they've got a big hall there, which provide, the only other comparable size town centre venue is the Alexander Centre. But I know at the moment, if you want to hire it, they don't have some of the facilities. If you need a PA, you have to hire it in separately. Yeah. So I think it would definitely enhance the Assembly Rooms, and it would be a good asset to the town and would help the town attract more events.
Super. I forgot to ask at the beginning of this one if anyone had an interest, which I should have done. Apologies. I'm assuming nobody does. I propose then we accept this as an application. Does anyone like to second that? Councillor Trevor Martin. Can we vote on accepting the application? I'm going to propose that we accept and fund the full application. Does anyone want to second that? Councillor Ben Martin, I'm assuming. And can we vote on funding the full application? I think that's unanimous again. Thank you very much. I think I've got a potential interest in the Sinkport rowing community interest charity, so I'm probably going to, I don't know if recuse is the right word. I'm going to step back on this and ask that Councillor Trevor Martin takes.
Councillor Barker, sorry, can I just confirm, are you declaring a non-pecuniary interest?
Yeah, it's a non-pecuniary interest. I have I've done a lot of work on one of the boats with my children, and I think I've paid into some funding somehow and signed up. So it's pretty best if I don't take part in this.
Thank you. In that case, I will follow the same format. Again, it's the Sinkport Rowing CIC, and this is towards getting their boats going and completing the skiffs. It's approximately a tenth of the amount they need for the total project. So I'm willing to propose we accept this application. I've got a seconder. Reynolds, thank you. And can we vote on accepting it first? Thank you. And now, has anyone got any further comments? Do we want to just accept the full amount? No one's indicating to speak, so I propose then that we pay the full amount. Is anyone seconder for that? Reynolds again, and can we all vote on that one then, please? Yep. All in favour, that's unanimous. So that's paid in full. We can now get Councillor Barker in for the next one.
Thank you very much. Councillor Trevor Martin. Moving on to face, then incredibly worthy organisation, doing a lot in harder times than usual. I don't want to sway. Anybody got any thoughts or questions before we move to Council Town Clerk?
Sorry, I was just going to say, are there any interests?
Yeah, sorry, apologies. Thank you
Sorry.
for reminding me. Any interests? Non-pecuniary or pecuniary interests? No. Any thoughts on the face application before we move to? No. In which Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that we support this application. I think faced a great deal of important work within the community. They provide a social service in many respects beyond the work that they do in terms of their interaction with the old people and older. I think older people and the vulnerable within our community. And I understand that they have difficulty raising funds in the current climate, and I think we should support them.
Absolutely.
I'm going to propose we both support them and support the full amount in one go, and let's see how that works, because we seem to be doing it all the way through. So I'm going to propose we support and fund the whole amount. Does anyone like to second that?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And to vote on supporting face, unanimous. Thank you. Any interests in Favisham pools? He said knowingly. Councillor Ben Martin.
Declare an interest as the town council's nominated trustee on Favisham pools. I have requested special dispensation. I'd like to remain in the room if I may, but I shall avoid commenting or voting.
Can I just say, actually, your email didn't specify that you were asking for a dispensation, and you didn't say the pools, but I'm happy to accept your dispensation request now. So
I mean, I'm going to kick this one off, and my personal feeling is when Councillor Saunders, I think, started off with the idea of protecting our town assets at the beginning of lockdown. I mean, I think this is exactly this sort of infrastructure and facility that we need to think about and protect. I mean, I don't have an intimate knowledge of the Favisham Pool's finances, but I know it's been incredibly stretched in a year in which it's been hardly able to open. And when it was able to open, it's done a fantastic job for many members of the community. I think Favisham would be much poorer without the Favisham pools, and I'm just going to propose outright we accept the application and support the full funding in one go. Does anyone want to talk to that, or does anyone want to second that?
I would second that.
Councillor, just in case you want to talk to it, but Councillor Trevor Martin?
No, fine. I'm quite happy. I think Councillor Saunders had his hand up there as well. But
Okay.
I'm quite happy to second, and I think it's, as you say, it is one of those things that we actually did genuinely intended funding to be for during COVID. It's exactly protecting the publicly funded asset. I know the indoor pool was part funded by other councils, but the outdoor pool was by public subscription, and I think it behoves us well to do it.
Yeah. Councillor Saunders, did you have any comments you want to?
No, I agree totally with what you said, Chair, and also what Councillor Martin has just said. And it's actually a very strong application on its own merits for a very specific thing. So we must support it.
Shall we move to vote then, please? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Favisham umbrella, we're nearly there. We've only got 3 more to do. Favisham umbrella, does anyone have any interests? Councillor Owen.
Councillor Barker, I'm a trustee of Favisham umbrella.
Understood. I think we've lost Councillor Hook at the moment.
Councillor Irwin, did you want a dispensation, or are you happy to be removed?
No, I'm happy to be removed. I didn't apply for one. So.
Right, that leaves 5 of us for the moment. Does anyone have any thoughts? Would anyone like to propose this particular application? Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, I'd be happy to support this application. I think some applications we've had from the Umbrella Centre in the past have been slightly generic and kind of general appeals for funds rather than for specific project work. But I think the particular context we're in now, I think general appeals for funds from community organisations are quite acceptable. But also I think within the application there are specific things that they're asking for, and particularly to help them deliver services during the kind of lockdown or during lockdown type periods. So I would, I'd be prepared to propose the application and suggest that we fund it.
I would second that. Yeah, I would second that.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second that. Should we take a vote on the application and the funding? Carried. Thank you very much. We can let Councillor Irwin back in. We now have, I think there are a couple of interests in this one too. The West Favisham Community Centre Food Bank application. Does anyone want to declare any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests?
Yeah, trustee.
Okay.
I'm a trustee.
So you'll be removed into the lobby for a few minutes, Madam Mayor. I have to say, whilst the other application for West Favisham Community Centre was pretty strong, I thought this application was perhaps the weakest application that we received. And I'm personally not minded to support it, unfortunately. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, the position with kind of food banks and storage in the first lockdown was quite different to where we find ourselves now. I'm absolutely not averse or opposed to supporting the food bank and you know, using that as a method to distribute funds for food for people in need of food. I'm just minded that I'm not clear of the value of the West Favisham Community Centre in running that facility, how needed it is in that particular area right now, and just the application wasn't particularly strong. But I'll take other thoughts and proposals as they come. Councillor Trevor Martin.
Thank you. One of the things I note is that both the grant applications state the youth club dropping and cooking sessions. So we've already transferred that one off to the youth working group. And I am minded that previously when we did our COVID grant applications, we had a very similar request which we granted, which makes me probably as nervous, if not more nervous, of this odd £800 one than, as you say, it just seems to be, it does seem a bit weak, and it doesn't seem to have any rhyme nor reason to it. Bearing in mind, we have seen planning applications for other things. It's almost as though this is a way of getting the money to help equip the new restaurant. So I'm much like yourself, I'm slightly minded to refuse this one.
Any other thoughts or comments? Councillor Saunders. I'm afraid you're on mute, Councillor Saunders.
I would certainly agree with you, Councillor Barker, that it's a very weak application and the weakest application that we've seen. I I suppose through my role as a councillor in Swale and having some specific responsibilities around food banks, I mean, I am aware that West Favisham is providing these kinds of services, but I'm concerned really at this stage that some of the partnership arrangements that should be in place with the Favisham Food Bank aren't really as strong and aren't working as well as they should be. And I think certainly if we were going to give any funding, I'd want to be assured that a proper kind of partnership arrangement had been put in place with Favisham Food Bank to ensure that what the West Favisham Community Centre was doing was complementary to the services that were being provided by the Favisham Food Bank. So, I mean, I think in overall terms, if we're judging proposals on the application that we're seeing before us, I think there are arguments for turning this down. And I suppose ultimately we should be judging people on their application, not on what we know about them previously.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Councillor Ben Martin.
Yeah, to concur with previous speakers, it's incredibly difficult to look at some of the other applications we've had where we've had paragraph and paragraph about what the project's about and what it's going to do and what the benefits are going to be. And this one we've got a sentence per question with no real detailing behind it. It's very difficult to then go and award money to that project. It seems almost as though this one was thrown in quick and they had another application that they were working on, and it's disappointing. I think yes, food banks do require funding, and that funding is going in through the district council to those that are properly set up, as Councillor Saunders will no doubt know, being that it's in his portfolio area. I just can't support what is essentially a very, very weak application that doesn't seem to have an identified reason for the need.
Councillor Ben Martin. Councillor Irwin, you've not had a chance to speak. I mean, you may or may not want to speak, but otherwise I'll propose. Yeah, no, sorry. I just actually found it very interesting to listen to others' opinion on this. Applications like this are always interesting because who would argue that food banks don't sadly have an important role in our society, but I do agree that you have to look at an application on its merits rather than it's not about whether we should support food banks or not. It's about whether we should support this particular application, and I do tend to agree with what's been said. So it's been interesting to hear that consistently. Thank you. In which case, I'm going to propose to move that we reject this application at this stage. Does anyone like to second that? Councillor Trevor Martin, can we vote on that? Unanimous. Thank you. And last but not least of the applications to be reviewed tonight is the Favisham Carnival Club. Can I ask if anyone has any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests in the Carnival Club? No. In which case, does anyone have any thoughts they'd like to share on this application? Councillor Trevor Martin?
Thank you. Given that this is purely, for want of a better way of putting it, tick over money, because obviously they've not been able to do anything this year in their normal fundraising way, particularly running the actual street procession. I propose that we support this in full, so that the carnival can return next year, hopefully, provided we get this virus out of the way, or at least under better control. And it would be sad to see the Carnival Club give up because they couldn't find the money for their insurances. So I propose we accept this and accept it in full.
I mean, I'm minded to second this. I mean, you know, the one thing that strikes me about Favisham is in any one month, there's usually a big community event that goes on. And I've really, really missed that this year, as I'm sure everyone in the town has. And this is one of those events, you know, when my children were younger, it was probably more exciting in some ways, but they still really love it. And, you know, the town does. I mean, hundreds and thousands of people line the streets for the event. So I'm minded to second that proposal to accept and to fully fund. Does anyone else like to comment before we vote? No, in which case I'm going to propose we move to vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. So I think, in short, we've awarded and fully funded the Animate Arts, the Assembly Rooms, the Cinque Ports Rowing, FACE, Favisham Pools, Favisham Umbrella, and the Favisham Carnival Club, with Milfield Allotment Association to be dealt with out of the budget for allotments for the year, and for Creed Outdoor Learning and West Hampton Community Centre Youth Drop-In to be reviewed and undertaken, hopefully by the youth group. I think that's fantastic. We're able to help these organisations. I really hope that Find Your Voice is able to generate a structure that we can support potentially in future, and look forward to them trying to reapply at the next available opportunity. Thank you very much for that. That could have been quite painful, but I think it was actually relatively smooth. So we'll move on to agenda item number 9, Favisham Town Council website to receive an update. And I'm hoping the town clerk is going to offer us an update. She looks like she's something was biting her ankles or something. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I'm under attack by a fly. It's come from somewhere. Yes, I sent you the link of work in progress so far. I've got, I'm having a virtual meeting with Zonky tomorrow afternoon to go in a bit more detail about the back end of it. And from then I will start updating it more. There's a few things I want to add. So hopefully looking to go live definitely before Christmas. So as soon as I've had the meeting tomorrow, I think it will be progressed quite quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and thanks for all the work that's going into that. I know it's not inconsiderable, and along with all the other work I see you're picking up, it's very much appreciated.
I don't know, did anybody have any queries about the website at all, the new website? No, everybody's quite happy with what they've seen so far. Okay, good.
Thank you. Items to report, informational items for next agenda. Is that just a general call for action, Louise?
Sorry, I missed that. I keep losing.
Sorry, item 10 on the agenda is items for report, informational items for the next agenda. Is that just a request for input?
Yes, any other business that's nothing to be agreed. So if you've got any things to report or things for the next agenda.
Anyone have any contributions they'd like to see the next agenda? Councillor Saunders. I'm afraid you're on mute.
Yeah, it's a question really. A member of the public has contacted me about, apparently in Canterbury there's a Canterbury gift voucher scheme. I presume you purchase a gift voucher and you can then use it in various shops in the city, and they've approached me about whether that might be something that could be considered in Favisham. My question really is that something for this committee, or is it something more for the town marketing group?
Councillor Trevor Martin.
Thank you. If I may, I would suggest that this sounds very much similar to the Favisham reward scheme that you used to run. I think that would be something for the Economic Development Department of Swale Borough Council to consider first, rather than the Town Council, because it's not the Town Council's part to play. and we don't want to go against what they may be doing. So I think I would ask the economic development team at Swale first, and then see what they say before we would consider it. But it is something, it would be a coordination job, I think, which perhaps may be the auspices of the Favisham Traders Association rather than the town council. I wouldn't like to tread on their toes either. So I think it would be a combination of those that we need to speak to see if there was any interest from businesses in getting that off the ground.
Councillor Jeff Martin, is that to suggest that Claire might be able to pick that up from this and take that forward with Matthew Martin Vicky? Is that a way forward?
I defer to the town clerk.
Yeah, thank you. My one query is that Claire's job description has recently been changed, that she doesn't deal with businesses and that it's just tourism. So what effectively we're talking about here is a voucher scheme for businesses. So I would just question and query Claire's involvement with it, because we've just told her she's not dealing with businesses. It might lead to some confusion.
Councillor Ben Martin.
I think the way forward is fairly clear on this one. It needs to be referred to the Borough Council's Economic Development Team and perhaps the chair of the FTA. The Town Council does not do the economic development side. We're not geared up to do it, unfortunately.
So is that something, Councillor Saunders, you can then push in your as a borough councillor?
Yeah, certainly, and I can write to the FTA and tell them that I've done that, so they can liaise direct with Swale if they're interested.
Thank you very much. Any other items to report or items to be picked up in the next agenda? If not, I think that's the end of the open session for this meeting. And we will move shortly to a private session for agenda item number 11.
I think we have to take a vote to move to private session, Mr. Chair.
Apologies, thank you very much. Can I take those? Do you need a proposer and seconder, I assume? I'll propose we move to private session. Can I have a seconder, Madam Mayor? All those in favour? Thank you.
Thank you. If I could ask the members of the public to leave, or I will remove you. That's whatever's easiest.
Thank you for the point of order, Ben. Councillor Ben Martin.